the Sounds True Podcast Network.
When you're not trusting yourself, when you're not listening to your love, when you're not listening to the light that is in you and only in you, when you're not doing what you're meant to do, it's supposed to hurt. It's supposed to feel empty. I want to know what happens if I listen to a voice of love inside me instead of a voice of fear.
Welcome, friends. In this episode of Insights at the Edge, my guest is Tama Kieves, an honors graduate of Harvard Law School who left her law practice with a prestigious corporate law firm to write and also to help others unlock the extraordinary faculties that we all possess. Tama is the author of 6 books, including Thriving Through Uncertainty, A Year Without Fear, and a new book. It's a book that I read, I have to be honest with you, I didn't know what to expect. And as I cracked it open and started reading it, it felt to me like sitting with a prayer book. It felt like a book I could center myself in my own deepest heart. But here's the really interesting thing. At the same time, I laughed out loud with this prayer book on every other page. It's called Learning to Trust Yourself, Breaking Through the Blocks That Hold You Back. Friends, stay with us. Tama, welcome.
I am so excited to be here. So honored.
You and I have something in common. People in your life have called you a doubting Tamis, and people have called me that too. It's interesting. You question everything, and at the same time, you're the most faithful person I've ever met. This is a description that you shared that one of your friends said about you. So right here at the beginning, what's it like for you to balance this questioning mind and faithful inner knowing at the same time?
Well, first of all, who said there's balance anywhere in this mind? But thank you. I think I want people to know that you can be extraordinarily faithful and extraordinarily inspired and on fire and committed to your life. And you could be doubting like crazy, and my mind has both faculties. My mind goes back and forth and back and forth. But I believe it's part of the path. I believe that's how we learn to trust ourselves, is that we go into situations that maybe make us doubt ourselves. And we learn how to be with that, and we learn how to rise, and we learn how to choose another intelligence. So my doubt in its own way has actually made me stronger. If I wasn't a doubtful person, I would never have sought out spirituality. I would never have been looking for anything. I just wanted to get by, be successful, whatever. But it was so much pain or so much of self-doubt in my life and so much of doubt in my dreams and doubt in my desires that made me seek out something higher. So I think they play well together. And and for me, a lot of times, when I lead a workshop or I'm leading a retreat, I'll always tell people that, the fact that I have fears, the fact that I am still going through things, sometimes this is good for you. It means I'm at my growth edge. It means I'm growing. It means I'm focusing, right? I don't have it all together. Right. And that makes me a better teacher sometimes, because I can, if they have an issue, I can relate. Whatever issue you have, I have it. I've had it. Right. So I just wanted people to know at the outset, with learning to trust yourself, that you didn't, quote, have to be good at it. This is the practice. It's a mindfulness practice.
Part of the premise that I love in learning to trust yourself is that we're undoing the blocks. To trust, you go further to the awareness of love's presence. What I like about this is that we're not adding something on as much as undoing some type of kink in the hose or covering or obscuration. And to begin with, I wonder how you see this notion of uncovering the
Yes,
blocks.
yes, yes, yes. I think that's really what we're doing at this time in life, to really be alive is to undo any block or any doubt or any pain that has ever stopped you before. That I don't think it's about self improvement. I don't think it's so much about I have to learn to be better and better and better. I want to learn to be me. I want to learn to be who I'm really, really meant to be. And so often we don't even realize that these blocks are holding us back. Because the blocks seem real, they seem normal, they seem realistic, right? So the most common one, for instance, is we think we're being realistic. We think we're being practical. We don't realize that, no, actually, that might be a way of not listening to your deepest, deepest truth. So I'm just going to give you an example because, I always do examples, and it's how I came to all this work. And because a block in my own mind of being realistic almost stopped me from my greatest life, my destiny, right? So when I was younger, when I was very young, I knew that I wanted to write. That was my dream. I loved writing, and I took creative writing in high school, and the teacher was gorgeous. So I thought, oh my God, it's a sign, And when I went home to share this news that I had found my calling, I want to be a writer. But I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and my family was Orthodox Jewish. And my mother just said something like, "You're going to write? You're going to write? You're going to starve. You're going to write." And that was it. That was the go for your dreams talk. And then she said something practical or reasonable, like, what? You can't get a job? You'll write on the Sundays, right? And so many of us hear this advice: be practical, be reasonable, stay safe. Don't listen to what's inside you. Don't listen to what moves you. Don't listen to what calls you. And so I listened, and I listened to her. I listened to what I was supposed to do, like many of us do. And I went to law school. I got accepted to Harvard Law School. I graduated with honors from Harvard Law School. My mother was very proud, bragging in every synagogue. But I was on partnership track in a major law firm, and I felt so empty and in so much pain because I had success the way you're supposed to have success. What the world tells you: if you have this, you'll be okay. If you have that, you'll be okay. And I just felt like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? I don't feel okay. And here's what's supposed to happen when you're not trusting yourself, when you're not listening to your love, when you're not listening to the light that is in you and only in you, the gifts that you have to give humanity, when you're not doing what you're meant to do. It's supposed to hurt. It's supposed to feel empty. And so thank God a friend at the time said, think about it. If you've been this successful doing something you don't love, what could you do with what you love? And that's what began my entire journey. That's what started everything. As I thought, I get one life. I want to know what happens if I listen to a voice of love inside me instead of a voice of fear. And for me, that's what learning to trust yourself is all about, is how do you listen to that voice of love, that voice of a higher intelligence that's connected to your greatest potential, right? And most of us are blocking ourselves thinking, I have to be realistic, I have to be practical, instead of following that energy that's going to take you all the way.
I have to bring up, and I will throughout our conversation, the potential pain and disappointment of people who are listening, who are partially inspired by the sparkling possibilities of what you're describing, but also like,
Mm-hmm.
guess what, Tama? I did that. I did the unreasonable thing. I tried it and it didn't work out. It didn't work
Yes.
out. And now I'm here listening to you. And I have
Mm-hmm.
this, I tried, I took this risk and,
Mm-hmm.
it fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have this sense of failure and yet
Yes.
also a longing.
Yes, yes, so well put. That is such a good question, and I'm really glad you brought it up because it's such a good distinction. I'm a coach, and I deal with that question every day. And it's an excellent question. And here's the thing: when you follow that inner voice, that inspiration, that spark, right? It's about having a relationship with yourself of kindness, of patience, of follow through. And it doesn't mean that just because I have a dream that, oh, I'm going to follow my guidance and I'm going to make $1 million, right? It doesn't mean that that form is what's going to happen. It does mean that if you stay in touch with yourself, you are going to grow. What happens to most of us is that something didn't happen the way we wanted and we shut down, right? We just get disappointed. Like you said, I've gone through that. You get disappointed and you think, yeah, this doesn't work. Manifestation. Yeah, right. And you shut down, and that's the problem. So the only thing I'm ever trying to get people to is opening their heart again to themselves and to their lives. And it is the willingness to say, I don't know the form this needs to take. I don't know even my highest happiness, but I'm going to follow this energy and I'm not going to shut down. And so to give you a practical example, it took me 12 years to write my very first book. I left law. It took me 12. It was not like instant, like, woohoo, I just trust that it happens. And it didn't mean it got published right away either. It took me 12 years to write it. I went through disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. And I just kept coming back and going, I don't know what else to do. This feels right. And one of the things I tell everybody I speak to is, I always tell the story of, that it took 12 years, is because I try to tell people it took 11 years for me to believe in myself, and 11 years to believe that there was a universe that cared about me, that I could trust that. 11 years to believe in something higher, 11 years to believe I was worth something, and 1 year to write a book. So things take time, because the ultimate goal of this path isn't just the form, but the growth, the relationship I'm having with myself. Even if I had never published that book, right? I would have been disappointed as a human being, but I grew so much. I stood up for myself. I stayed with something, even though it wasn't. I changed forms. I adapted. I kept going. I kept believing I would be guided, and I was. And I look back every day and think, oh my God, what if I hadn't trusted that? Oh my God, what if I hadn't listened? So if a listener is listening and thinking, yeah, I am never dating again because I tried trusting and then I dated the psychopath or the narcissist or whatever, it's hard. I hear you. I'm the first one. I suffer from like immediate looking for disappointment. There's radar in me that's always looking for it. And I have to keep coming back to opening my heart again. I'm willing to believe in my life again. And the reason I'm willing to believe in my life again is because this is the only life I've got that I know of. And I want to be available. I want to open up, because if I shut down, it's game over. It's not only game over to that particular dream, it's game over to all dreams, right? So all I'm ever trying to do is help people see what they're learning, how they're growing, how they're being moved. Because sometimes people will say, like you said, I listened and it didn't work out. I had a client years ago who started a business, and she said, Tama, I tried that. I listened, I started the business, and yeah, it was working a little bit, but then I went bankrupt, right? And so I talked to her more, and what had happened was she had listened, and then she stopped listening. She had assumed the guidance was to keep the store open and just keep the store open no matter what, even though she was getting guidance at the time that I'm tired. I don't really feel like this anymore. She wasn't listening to that. So for me, this isn't a one-time thing. This is a constant, listening to the nuances. And it's taken me 1 billion years to realize this, but it is a truth that I now serve. I do not, and it's a lot that I talk about in learning to trust yourself. It's not about the form of our lives. It's not about what our lives look like. It's what it feels like. And we get to determine what it feels like. We get to determine what we focus on. So when I left law, I downsized everything. I lived in a tiny little studio apartment in Capitol Hill, and, I was super poor, and I would what it looked like, when I get my Harvard alumni magazines, their bathrooms were bigger than, like my entire living space. And I would feel bad and compare myself. But if I were just listening to what it felt like, it felt exciting. I was on an adventure, and I was really proud of myself for trying. And I was giving myself a chance, and I was going beyond what it looked like, and I was staying in touch, right? So I'm always trying to help people stay in touch with what's working in their lives and why they're doing what they're doing. So great question. Thank you.
Well, also, just to take a moment, I'm so glad you stuck with writing those 12 years to write your first book and now 6 books, because you're a gorgeous writer. And
Oh,
I
thank you.
don't laugh out loud easily. I don't. I wish I did. I don't. And you know how to tickle my funny bone in your writing,
Oh,
Tama. It's really true.
God.
Towards the end of the book, you talk about 2 practices that we can use to help us to continue on this journey of trusting ourselves. And I want to especially talk about one of them, the first one, which is be kind to you. And then the second
Mm,
practice that you offer is to choose again, choose again. And I think
yes.
you've already sort of underscored this notion that even if we've been disappointed, we can choose again. But
Choose
this
again.
be kind to you, I want to find out what you do when you hear a voice inside that's not kind, and how you can help our listeners who perhaps are hearing such a voice even as they're listening to you now.
Yes, perfect question. First of all, I'll back up and I'll say it was a revelation for me to say that the practice was to be kind to myself. That was a new thing to really, really own that, because I grew up in a culture, an alpha centric, achievement oriented culture that, like, you're not doing well, then push harder, buck up. Right? Make it work. What's wrong with you? Other people can do it. So I had and still have a very critical voice. And I had a belief secretly had a belief that that critical voice was necessary for my success. I believed that if I was kinder, well, I'd just watch Netflix and just hang out, eating chocolate bar, milk chocolate, mind you, of, and that I wouldn't accomplish anything or do anything. And it has been the revelation of my lifetime, and probably the point of my lifetime, to be kind, to be incredibly kind to this vessel, to this being that serves this one light. Like, I believe each of us has a singular path that we are meant to serve the gifts that are in us. And I'll just say one other quick thing before I say how to do it, is that another huge revelation for me. So I study A Course in Miracles and I teach A Course in Miracles and have for decades. And it's a path of living in love instead of fear. And it's all about hearing your higher intelligence and all of that, right? What I never realized and what I came to for myself was, I can't hear a loving voice in the universe while I'm being critical of myself. I can't hear God. I can't hear the universe. I can't hear the Shakti, whatever. I can't hear whatever it is, like whatever you're supposed to hear, right? I will not hear that. I will not feel that while I'm being cruel to myself, because it's a different frequency, right? When I'm on that energy of this is wrong with you and why can't you get it together and and you're so old already and you're thinking of this now and blah, blah, blah. When I'm on that frequency, I am no longer available to the genius that's available to all of us. So being kind to myself has become a deeply spiritual path, because I realize I want to serve this flow of energy, this flow of intelligence, these gifts, these creative gifts. I am a creative person for a living, right? That's what I do. And I have to stay available to that. I cannot write well when I'm criticizing myself. Go figure. And believe me, I hear that all the time. I'll be writing and my critical voice will go, really? You're going to use the word the again? Really? Like, oh, you're so creative. Of Right? You can't hear the flow, the flow, the flow. So that's, I just wanted to back up and say,
It's
first
a
of all, that's
very, very
why.
important point. So I'm glad you're
Yeah.
underscoring it.
Yeah. Yeah, that why being kind is so important. And so there's a million different ways probably people have to get their own. And I will always say, by the way, find your path, find your way, right? Like, use the teachers that serve you. If it's not resonating for you, it's not your way, right? I took years thinking, oh my God, they do it that way. That must be the right way. How come I can't get it? Until I started realizing, oh, because I have my way if I trust myself. So the main thing I personally do, there's a few things I personally do, but the main thing I do is I know that there's 2 different voices within me. A lot of times we think there's like 5,000 different voices in us, and there probably are. But there's love or fear, right? There's just different perceptions of way to see it. And so while that critical voice or that unruly protector or whatever is talking, and it feels very, very real. I have to remind myself it's not the ultimate reality. It feels real, but it's not necessarily the truth. So I have a technique that I personally have used for years that I call the inspired self dialogues. And it's you and I talked to you very briefly before we talked, and it's a tool that I'm going to offer to the Sounds True community.
Wonderful.
I'll tell a little bit about it. For me personally, and I inflict it on all my clients, I inflict it on all my workshops, I inflict it everywhere. For me personally, it is the thing that was the game changer. For me, it was the thing because I have a busy mind. I'm sure you can't imagine that. I'm sure that's like really hard to see, but go with me. I have a very busy mind, and I admire the heck out of people who can find that infinite quiet and still the mind or whatever. That was not my way initially. I have to honor the busy mind. So I have to write out my fears, and I have to listen to that concerns and the frustration or the anger or whatever it is. And then I have a technique that it teaches you how to listen to an extraordinary voice of a higher love. And different people get there in different ways, and I walk you through that. But of just that there is, what I will say just in general, everybody, I don't care who you are, everybody has a voice of infinite intelligence within them that is available at any time. It is the negative voice that's blocking it, right? And so for me, I write about the fears, but then I write to that other voice and I dialogue back and forth. So like I said, I call it my number one best tool, because it is. And I know you probably will put it in the show notes, but if people are interested, it's at tamakieves.com, TAMAKIEVES.com /best tool. And it's a short little video I created that just trains you. You do it with me right then and there. And I want you to do it. I really want you to have that experience of what I want for people, whether it's through the Inspired Self Dialogues or it's through anything else. I want people to have the experience of knowing that even though they feel like they're critical and they feel like they're broken and they feel like they're too young or they're too old or they're not smart enough or they're too overwhelmed with everything, or in our society now too anxious, there is a deeper intelligence and an infinite love that can handle anything at any moment. And for me, it's been the ultimate training of my life to learn how to listen to it. And one of the coolest moments of my life, I do it in writing. I'm a writer, so I have to see it and I have to write it, whatever. But after a while, I think I created enough of a real relationship that I could just hear it. And one of the coolest things that ever happened to me was, it was years ago, and I had led my first women's retreat. I'd never led a retreat before, and it was years ago, and I'd led my first women's retreat, and nobody left, and nobody hated me, and nobody wanted all their money back and therapy on top of it, so I was after the retreat, and I was flying down the mountain. I was driving down the hills of this mountain. I had the radio turned up. It's like, I'm a retreat facilitator. Oh my God, and I was so excited, and I heard an inner voice out of nowhere that just said, "Oh, honey, slow down. Oh, honey, slow down." And I burst into tears. And the reason I burst into tears was because it was a kind voice that said, "Oh, honey, slow down." It wasn't a voice that said, "Slow down, you idiot. What's wrong with you?" Because that's what I would have heard. That's always what I would have heard. And so it made me realize, oh my God, I've been integrating this voice. And on a practical level, it serves you immensely, because I was doing an interview some years ago on ABC News, or on TV or whatever. I was scared out of my mind. I was really excited, but I was scared, and I'm on there, and then my stupid critical voice starts talking to me while I'm talking. While I'm hearing it, like, "Oh, you're not doing well. It's they're not going to like you," or whatever. And I just stopped it in its tracks. I just said, no, not now, honey. We're not doing that. We're going to give our love. We're going to show up. And it was amazing. I was able to just truly let that flow of information, that flow of gifts. So I want everybody to be able to access their gifts, their genius, their creativity, their intelligence, especially now, right? In the world we live in that needs more love, not less. Uh, every time you're kind to yourself, a politician grows wings, or just maybe, who knows? I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that. Of every time you're kinder to yourself, it's an act of incredible, invincible power that is allowing something deeper to happen. You are returning to who you are. And everybody's always looking for their life purpose and their life purpose. If you can't find a life purpose, I'll give you one. And that is just listen to the love inside you. Be kinder to you. Make the rest of your life being a commitment to I've been entrusted being a steward of this one being, this person called Tama, right? Of I need to learn how to love her. I need to learn how to be with her. I need to learn how to reassure her and how to have faith, right? So to me, I think it's one of the best life purposes you'll ever have is being more gracious with yourself because it changes everything.
Tama, I'm curious what you make of an experience I'm about to share in broad stroke terms, and if you've ever had an experience like this in your life where you felt you were definitely listening to higher guidance. You could say your inner teacher, and everything in
Mm-hmm.
you resonated with, yes, this is it. This is it. This is it. You walked
Mm-hmm.
all the way down to the end of the road, and then you saw the dead end sign. It didn't
Mm.
work, but you were listening the whole time and feeling
Mm-hmm.
it, but it was off. And
Yes.
one of the sections in learning to trust yourself has this notion that it's almost like we can be a GPS that recalculates, like recalculating. And that's what
Yeah.
happened in my case. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you're going to have to recalculate, and it's okay. But it also left me with a questioning, like maybe I don't know, like these
Mm.
times when I
Mm.
think this is really right.
Yes.
Now I'm like, God, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. 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 Wow. First of all, I would have infinite compassion for that. The first thing I would do to anybody who's ever gone through an experience like that, before I even figured it out, what it meant, what I should do, it's heartbreaking, right? It's heartbreaking. And to the being that believed and walked down and was going to do it, of first I would just offer a lot of compassion. But I will say, first of all, I do believe in the GPS. If GPS can reroute us, so can the universe, right? And GPS never goes, you dumb moron. Why did you turn right? I told you left, right? It never does that, right? It does sound a little snarky sometimes, like recalculating route of. But the main thing I will say to answer your question. So again, I've taught A Course in Miracles for decades, and that's the source of a lot of my wisdom or a lot of my training or a lot of my whatever. So the Course in Miracles for me has helped a lot because there's one of the lessons that says, I do not perceive my own best interests. I do not perceive my own best interests, right? And so what that means is that sometimes something's happening and we don't realize the way that it is good or what it's for, or that again, we live in a culture that is so material, that is so appearance oriented. If I do these steps, I'll have a bestseller. If I do these steps, I'll be thin and everybody will love me. If blah blah blah. And I don't think a spiritual journey is about that. I wish it was, actually. There's times where I wish it was. I could just follow some formula and it would work, right? But I really think it's about me growing and healing. So sometimes the devastating things really open my heart in a way I never would have had it open. And, again, might be something that makes me more available to the universe. Like even what you just said, where it's like, you get to the place of, well, now I don't know. That might be a good thing. right? That might be a good thing. Like to, so I have my desires. I have my dreams. I want my work to take off. I want it to go to the highest possibilities, right? I want all of that. But I also know that I don't know what's right. And so I'm going to take the steps I feel guided to do. And I'm going to know that no matter what, I have the integrity of knowing I did what I felt guided to do. Like one of the things that I learned early on in my career, because I've had a lot of things that didn't work out constantly. Like nothing took off right away in my life. I'm not that girl. Um, of, but what I've learned is as much as I'm afraid of failure, I'm more afraid of regret. I'm more afraid of regret. So I would rather be the person who goes all the way believing in something, daring something, trying something, doing my best to listen. And even if a quote didn't work out, I knew that I showed up at that dock. I knew that I did my part. And I also know I don't know the end of the story. We don't know the end of the story, so a lot of times I'm wanting something that's way too small for me, right? I'm wanting something and thinking, no, this is really what I want. Oh my God, it's got to be that because it's what I know. I'm just wanting things I know, where the universe is sometimes bringing us into the courtyard of what we don't know. And we don't even know to want to know. I had to get my heart broken in a billion pieces by somebody in a relationship before I became available to somebody who was nice. Cause nice wasn't interesting to me, oh, you're into commitment and nice and safety. Oh yeah. But I wouldn't have been available to that because I was into the chase or the player or the whatever I thought it was, God knows but sometimes a broken heart makes us more available to infinite intelligence. But I think the main work here is to always keep forgiving yourself. Like, even if you did make a mistake, maybe you didn't listen all the way, or maybe there was a cue you didn't follow, right? Then that's the work I look at, that was a mistake, but it doesn't matter. I can grow from that mistake. We're always growing. The point of this journey is growing into freedom and peace. It's not necessarily the physical results, right? And so if I'm on my deathbed and nothing's going right, I want to go there with love. I want as much as I can to be at least kind or peaceful or something. And so when things happen to people, like I've worked with people that have devastating experiences, just devastating circumstances. And you look at that and you think, how is that a loving universe, right? But what I know is that there is something. I always think when you're in a devastating experience, it's an adventure. Like you're a shaman, something else is going on here. Like your soul is so needed this level of it to go somewhere, right? And so for me, it's more, what do we make it mean? What do we do with it? That's what matters. Life isn't what's happening. It's our response to what's happening.
Part of your book, Trusting Yourself, that moved me the most, you might find this surprising, Tama. It's the writing that you did about your mom and your dad and your journey with both of them. And I want to talk about that because I think sometimes when people think, God, I'd trust myself more if I was raised with a mother and father who created a very loving holding space for me where I felt safe and I knew I belonged and I developed trust at a young age. And you dispel such notions that it's possible to actually, as we grow, provide that holding space for ourselves, actually, such that we can then offer it to our parents.
Yeah.
And you tell a very moving story, both about your time with your father and then your time with your mother that occurred before they died. And I found these healing stories, they just, I wept when I read both of them. I really loved them. And I wonder if you can share them both with us, especially for all of those people listening who had, difficult childhoods.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that my parents are yet serving, are yet serving humanity of, you know, part of my own healing, because I certainly went down that train of how come I didn't get a good mother? How come I didn't get that nurturing mother? Like I would always be jealous, like I'd have a student that goes, "Oh, my mother so gets me. My mother, oh, she bought this thing because she knew that one day on a Wednesday, I looked at this one thing and she remembered it and la la." And I'd like want to scream, like, "What? Your mother paid attention to you?" But one of the things I will say, because I so wanted more than anything else in this lifetime to be heard, to be seen, to be cared about, to be valued, right? To be seen. I think it gave me my life's calling, because one of the things that I do have as a gift is on my watch, everyone will be seen. Like I know that my students would probably say that in workshops or classes or whatever, that I'm always beholding people. I'm always listening. I deeply listen to people. And I think that gift came from such a hunger, from such a desperate need to have that myself. So now I give it to others. And again, it's a Course in Miracles principle, and it's not only the Course in Miracles, but that the more that we give, right, the more that we give in life, our smallness disappears. So I could spend the rest of my life, and I spent a lot of my life, so I know this, I researched this, I could spend a lot of my life waiting for people to give to me. Why don't they support me? Why don't they get me? Who's going to listen? Who's going to love me? And I've spent the rest of my life now deciding I'm going to be the person who gives. I'm going to be the larger presence in the room, not because I'm better, not because it's moral, not because I'm trying to prove something, but because I end up being happier. When I let that love come through me, I end up being happier. So the story I think you're talking about with my dad was just an amazing, amazing experience. I spent years in therapy going, why won't he doesn't care about me. He doesn't ask questions about me. He's not interested in my life. And I, we'd always sit on the front. I live in Denver and I'd go home to New York, and we'd visit on the front porch, and he'd always be talking about Delta flies over here twice a day and American Airlines goes over here. And I'd think, are you kidding me? I've just flown 2,000 miles away and this is what you're going to talk about? Don't you want to know what's your deepest meaningful moment in your life right now, precious daughter? Doesn't that enter your mind? So I'd be so frustrated always, right? But one year I went home and I decided I'm done asking him to be different. I'm going to be different. And I'm done asking him to change. I'm just going to be with him. I'm just going to be present, and I'm going to be the presence of love for him, right? Instead of judging him. And so it was really amazing because we sat on the porch and he was doing the thing about the airlines or whatever. And I just said, really? I'm curious, does Southwest ever fly over here? Does Southwest come? I love the blue and the red on their tails, and he's like, oh no, I haven't seen that one. And then we talk about something else, and out of nowhere, he put his arm around me. Right. And it was just this amazing moment because I think he felt not judged. Right. And it wasn't that he then had an Oprah moment with me and asked me my deepest whatever. I also think that my father couldn't ask me things. He was afraid of intimacy. I also think he judged the heck out of my life. I was not doing what he wanted. I had left law. I wasn't married. I was living in crazy places like Denver, and so like for him, not asking was almost his truce, but my kindness of just being present and being in his world helped him enter my world. And I'll tell you what, I felt better about myself as a human being. And so I had a moment like that even more, as you said, with my mother. It's probably one of the most amazing things I've ever done in my life. And not conscious, not like I planned this. But again, I was visiting New York. I was teaching out there, and my mother lived upstate. My brother lived upstate. And I wanted to see them because I was in New York, right? And so nobody would come to the city to see me, right? So my brother had a very important pressing thing. He had to go to the mall or something like that, like just something of... my mother wouldn't take a train into the city, even though she'd take a train into the city for other things, but not her daughter visiting. And so I started forming this grievance in my mind, like, see, I'm just insignificant to my family. They're not, like, nobody even cares about me. They're not even going to take a train in to see me. And thank God, because of Course in Miracles, for me, I knew that was a grievance and it was getting me upset. And I just thought, okay, what's another way to see this? What's another way to see this? Right. And all of a sudden I realized I don't have to be a victim. They won't come to see me. I will go to see them. Right. And it was heroic, seriously, because it was, I had to take like a bus and a train and a cab and then I had to take it all the way back. And then I had to go to the airport after. It was like a crazy thing to do. But I just got so much energy in me. And I thought, I'm going to do it. I want to see them. And I decided I wanted my mother to feel special. I wanted her to feel loved because I knew she'd never gotten much love. And yes, I had my stuff against her about wanting her to love me or whatever. But we were in her little apartment, and she had a little shopping problem, and she shopped all the time with catalogs and whatever. And her closets were just burgeoning. And I also am not some neat freak and have issues organizing, but like out of nowhere, I just had this moment of feeling I want to help her instead of judging her, because I was judging her like, oh, look at this. And she's materialistic and whatever. And I decided to help her clean her closet. And at first she resisted me because she was like, oh, no way, no way. I don't want that. Right. But I just said, Mom, we're going to do this really lovingly. I will not judge you for anything. You have full say. I will just be here. I'm just curious if you really need the 25 green shirts. I'm just curious. If you do, that's fine. But maybe 24 would be okay. I mean, so I just started playing with her and teasing her. And we started laughing and throwing away like big moo-moos she didn't need or God knows what. And it was this like holy, insane moment because I was doing for her what she never did for me. I was being a parent to her in a way that she had never been to me. I was being a parent to her in a way that I hope to God I will parent myself for the rest of my life, that I want to learn how to be that loving and giving and patient and non-judgmental. And I felt like I was high. I felt like I was on God knows what Kundalini energy or God knows what and it was just something that just happened. And then I took the trains back home and, there was somebody because it's New York, somebody was singing New York, New York, so we're all singing on the train. It was an amazing experience of going beyond my story of what I needed from her and what I needed from them and deciding who do I want to be in this life? This is my life. I want to be this light. I want to be this love. I want to give to people what I want, what I need, because I learn how, because it grows me. I once heard an inner voice. I was angry of like, why do I have to be the loving one? They were mean to me. Why do I have to be the person who grows? Why can't they grow? And I heard an inner voice that said, whoever is stronger in the lifetime will be the one who loves. And I realized, you know what? I've had advantages my parents didn't have. I went to therapy. I went to God knows what. I went to healers. I went to RV. I've studied course. I had access to Oprah, Oprah TV, whatever. I had things they never had. Right. And I thought for whatever reason, my soul came in strong this time. I don't know why. I don't know how. I don't always feel it. And I just thought I'm going to be the one who loves. So it was an amazing, and I did not know, but she was going to have a car accident, like maybe 6 months, a year later after that, and died. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I went beyond my story to do that.
Tama, I think part of what moves me about both of these stories, the one with your dad and your mom, is that they're so within reach of all of us in our own way with relationships. Yes. In our lives. It's not necessarily like, writing a book and getting it published or like, it's not, it's this immediate possible in some relationship being the one who loves, deciding to hold the space for the other person.
Yes. And it changes everything. And if somebody's listening going, oh my God, now I feel even more threatened. Oh my God, now this is horrible. Please keep in mind, there is a time and place. I didn't choose that. I didn't come in saying, no matter what, I'm going to love them. They can be hateful and I'm going to love them. It was not an act of force. It was an act of receiving. I was ready. So I had years of being in pain. I had years of wishing it was otherwise. Right. And by the way, just because I had that moment didn't mean I didn't go right back to judging her at other times. I want to tell you, oh, I didn't and it was gone forever. No, it's a life practice. all of these things we're talking about, they are life practices. We have this conditioning, of that tired mind, that autopilot, right? That just goes back into our old stories. And it is this life practice to trust ourselves, to trust something higher, to trust that love. And every time we do, there's an experience that's in your bones, in your cells now. I know what it felt like to be that person. And again, it wasn't for her. The other thing that was amazing, my mother at one point said, and my mother didn't say stuff like this, but my mother at one point said, "You have been the most loving person to me," which was incredible. And there were days where I thought, well, why couldn't you love me? But I stopped that. But it was like, that's who I want to be in this lifetime. That's part of what I want to be in this lifetime. I want to be the person who shows up with the best of what I can be. And for all of us, that shows up in different ways, right? And I believe that there are people out there who have so many gifts and so much talent. And they're thinking, oh, well, who's going to want it? Who needs it? Whatever. And it's like, oh, God, I hope this is speaking to trusting that genuine impulse in you, because what happens is if you follow that impulse to be more loving, to be kinder, to listen to your gifts, to follow your desire, it makes you stronger. It makes you stronger. You will never lose your gains. Things may happen that, set us back again, but every gain I've ever had, it lives with me, and I get to decide what my reality is, am I the person I am when I'm inspired, or am I the person when I'm tired, right? It's like I get to choose my identity and which one I'm serving. So I'm hoping people are listening and going to follow that love.
Let me make sure that I picked up on something you just put down, which is...
You do it, girl.
Okay, which is because this is something you talk about in trusting yourself, learning to trust yourself, is if we follow the breadcrumbs of our desires, our longings, our sense of our genuine inspirations, that moves us deeper into realizing our possibilities, and that
Absolutely.
you're saying by following those breadcrumbs, because I have some breadcrumbs, they're very impractical, the things that I'm finding myself drawn to today in my 60s, and I'm like, really? You're going to do what? What are you going to spend your time doing? But if doing that in and of itself will make me stronger, that's going to make me stronger and more able to be this loving presence for others, which I want.
Yes. And it goes so against our ordinary thought, like exactly like what you just said. You're going to do what? That's crazy. With the world falling apart, you're going to go do X, but you know how I kept saying before that it's not the form of our lives, that it's not what it looks like, it's where it's coming from. Right. And it's the motivation. And it's like, we don't know why we're drawn to do something. It may not be for the thing itself. It might be. But just as an example, I know that if I write, whether or not I publish or do anything with it, but if I write, if I answer that calling in me, I tend to be a nicer person. So I have friends that, like, if I'm being crazy and just on something, I have friends that will say, honey, are you journaling at least? Which is a nice code way for you're a crazy person now. Right. But I am naturally more generous when I'm getting what I need, what the watering I need, the nurturing I need, the soul food I need, right? And what people don't realize about breadcrumbs, right, is that first of all, a breadcrumb of like something that you're drawn to, I always say chasing the heat, following the energy, right? It may not make sense to your linear mind. And that's the point, because we are being invited into what we don't know, right? So the mind that thinks it knows is going, well, that's not going to work. And that's really stupid. And da, 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 da. And people don't make money doing that. So the mind that thinks it knows is judging. But the breadcrumb is coming from the realm, leading you into what you don't even know about yourself and guiding you to other talents and abilities. And the other thing I always tell people is that one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another in ways that you can't expect. So I know when I first left law, the very first thing I felt guided to do horrified me because I knew I wanted to write, but write what? Like you do write fiction? Do you write essays? And I kept secretly wanting to write poetry. And I was like, oh God, could you pick something less lucrative? Really? Could you try for something more impractical if you tried? And I thought, I don't even read those books. Like, oh my God. But I finally started doing it because it was the only thing that kept talking to me. And what ended up happening was poetry started leading to writing these poetic essays about career transition, because that's what I was going through. And I was scared out of my mind. And I was reading every self-help book on the planet, and it wasn't answering me. It was like 7 steps to your new life, and so I was writing these poetic essays about being really real. And I realized, oh, I think I'm writing a book. And so I started writing my very first book. And then then I realized I want to be around other people, like I'm scared out of my mind. I want to be around other creative people or people who are on a spiritual journey. And so I started a little support group. And then people said, you're really good at this. You should consider teaching. You should consider guiding people. So I started teaching. I started teaching at a little adult ed class, to begin with. And I just started teaching, and people started really loving it. And then people started asking me, hey, would you ever work with me individually? Would you ever help me find my dream or my calling or whatever? And this was back in the days where coaching wasn't a career yet. And I'm, a former lawyer, so I'm thinking, wait, is that therapy? Is that legal if I work one-on-one with person, and then I think, well, they have money and I don't. So I think it's legal. Like I'm going for it. So I started doing coaching before coaching even became a career. Then people asked me would you ever take us away to the mountains and lead a retreat? So I started doing a retreat. Literally one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. In a billion years, now I'm on stages in all over different things, and just in a billion years, this is not where I knew it would go on some level, but like, I never ended up becoming a poet per se, but like one thing led to another, led to another. Sometimes we don't know why we're attracted to something, right? Or just even, I had a friend who just recently had a kitten that came into her life, and she just loved this kitten, and it was a godsend because she's in a really, really horrible place. And the kitten just died recently, and it was just tragic. It was really painful. But on another level, it's made her grieve and cry and get out this junk that's been inside her for so long about other disappointments and sadnesses. And so that's just such a good example of we don't know sometimes why something's there, right? So like the breadcrumb, like I went to get the kitten, and what was that for? It died within a few days, right? Like to me, that was a positive outcome, And so again, from A Course in Miracles, I'm always going to look at not what's happening, but what am I making it mean? What's really behind it?
Okay, I have 2 final questions for you, Tama.
Yes, ma'am.
One is that you described how this is an ongoing practice. It's not like there's some destination where you're 100% trusting 24/7 period. No, there's moments where you're like, oh, are you journaling? Your friends ask you, you go
Yes.
back, you return, great, return. At the same time, there is a trajectory that you're on with this practice.
Yes.
Would you say that you return to listening to the inner teacher quicker? Would you say you spend more time in that intelligent energy? Like it's a directional thing, or how would you describe it?
Thank you. That is so good. Yes. So I do not want to mislead people and think, oh, well, you never really get anywhere. You just do this forever and nothing really changes. That's not, I'm not that motivated. I'm just not that motivated I will just speak for myself and for clients that I've worked with it gets infinitely better, because even when I'm crazy or doubting or scared, I now know how this works. I have lived it. I have been so scared and it worked. And there was a trajectory. And, I keep talking about my first book and taking 12 years or whatever. I had miracle after miracle happen with that. I got the guidance to self-publish that initially, which was terrifying to me. That was a breadcrumb I didn't want, because it's like, oh, great, put your own money into something. And I didn't know anything about distribution or publishing or anything. And then it literally got discovered by somebody. I've called her my fairy godmother, where she literally found the book on Amazon and said it was the best book she'd ever read on finding your calling and whatever. And she got it to the publishing house of my dreams. And not only that, they not only bought the book, they didn't edit it, they didn't change the title, nothing. And I always go back to that in my mind over and over like a touchstone, because it reminds me that if I'd followed a conventional path, I would have never gotten where I've gotten. But you can't plan an inspired life, right? And so even when something's going wrong now, I go back to that story in my own soul of remembering how many doubts I had, how many fears I had. And my critical voice could go, well, yeah, that was great. You had a fluke then, but what about now? I mean, like it'll do that. But I know the reality of it. It just gets so much easier. And you just have so much more evidence of it. And you're training your mind. So here's the thing. When you have a different belief, your mind will find different evidence. When you have a different belief inside, when I have a belief that things are working out for me, that I am led by an amazing universe, I am looking for the evidence of that. And that's what I'm seeing. When I have a belief that nothing's going to work, it's never going to go right, blah, 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 that's what I'm looking and seeing. And so it's a training of focus. And it's the same thing. Like if you do yoga, uh, I'm not a good yoga person, but I got stronger. Even so, I still can't do it like the teacher does it. I'm never going to look that gorgeous and graceful, but I'm stronger than I ever was. And I'm not afraid anymore. Right. And so it's the same thing with this. Like I have so much evidence of it now working that it takes you to a different level. So when I say that we keep going backwards and doubting, I don't think we're going backwards. I do want to make that distinction. I don't think that we're ever going backwards. We're just cleaning up another doubt. We're just refining it like, oh, look, honey, you still have some residue here. Let's explore that. We love you so much. We want you so clear. We're going to look at that one belief again, not because you're going backwards, but because you're strong enough now to choose differently. And so I'm going to forever be growing. And I think the doubts are going to come up in me because I'm going to edges I've never gone to before. I'm being more loving than I've tried before. I'm being more trusting than I've ever tried. I'm doing bigger things in my life than I've ever done before. So my fears are going to come up, but that's a good thing. The whole purpose is for them to come up so that I can choose again, so that I can say, yes, they are here and I will love them with all my heart and I will love me with all my heart and I'll still hold my own hand and I'll still go forward with the next step.
I think one thing I just want to clarify, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by stronger. Like if you were saying, Tami, this is what I mean. Like I've gotten stronger through this work. And that, fill in the strength.
Great question. Like just even like just a simple thing might be like, let's say I'm talking to you. I'm talking to Tami Simon. Believe me, before I got on here, it's like, oh my God, I'm talking to Tami Simon, right? And my old self would have been, oh my God, she won't this won't go that well. I'll forget what I'm supposed to say. I would have all that kind of stuff come up. It still comes up here and there. But the strength is I have, it's like a reservoir or an ease or resilience because it's been built up. Like those thoughts don't take me down that groove in the same way. And also I have a different focus. Like I want to be helpful. I want to be loving. I want to be present. I want it not to be about me, right? I want to be really present, right? So because I've trained enough with that, it's easier. I don't have to fight the fear as much, right? It's more just, again, it's like a muscle that you've used now. And so, and then the other thing of stronger is that I really have changed my identity. I really have. Like I did not start off thinking, oh, I want to be the most loving person in the room. That was not my goal. My goal was I want to get what I want. Like I want to get everything I want. I just happened to realize that, being the most loving person helps me get what I want in ways I don't even realize. So the strength is, I think the other strength, and I'm so glad you asked this because it's good for me to remember it. For me personally, I believe in a God and a love and a universe like I've never believed before. I have such a gratitude for this force and this love that is with me constantly, even when I forget, even when I'm blocked to it. I see so much love, and I'm so, so grateful. And I did not know that there could be this love. And so part of what motivated me to write this book actually was I heard a voice that said, I need you to be the beloved. I need you to be the
Well,
beloved. I need you to
it's
know you're
so
loved.
interesting, Tama, that that's where you're going here, because this was my final question for you. And it's from your chapter called Siding with Your Undiluted Light. So first of all, that
Mhm.
was my favorite chapter title, Siding with Your
Oh.
Undiluted Light. And I was like, just write that down and put it someplace, Tami. And here's the quote. Neuroscientists have shown that standing in a certain pose, hands on your hips and your arms bent, gives us more confidence and stamina. I think of being the beloved as an inner version of this pose. And I thought, well, this will be the last question I ask Tama. What does it mean to be in the pose for you
Mm.
of being the
Mm.
beloved?
It means for me, like walking into every situation, being that beloved. And my beloved comes from the universe. It comes from knowing that I am cared about, I am safe, I am loved. And that because I'm in that pose of knowing that, or beginning to trust that, I want to give it. I want you to know that you're the beloved. I want every person to know that there is an infinite intelligence in you, and it may speak to you differently, and it may not have the same words or the same mechanisms or the same ways, but it is learning a language to that intelligence that's yours and yours alone. That I'm walking this planet with this infinite being, and that finally just taking in, what if I really am loved? And what if I don't have to keep preventing danger or attacking myself or needing things to be this way and that way? What if instead, because I'm in that pose of I am the beloved, I'm looking for it. I'm seeing it. I'm noticing it. I'm noticing every aspect of it. So if I'm in an interview or something, it's like I'll notice what's going right. Or even if it wasn't going right, it's like, how privileged is it to be able to do this at all? Right. Or I just gave one of the biggest speaking engagements I gave in my life last week, and I was really scared. But part of me just kept saying, like, Tam, the fact that you get on that stage, no matter what happens in this lifetime, the fact that you get up there, if you mumble, I don't care. If you mumble, the fact that you are walking onto that stage, that is the achievement to me. If you don't walk on that stage and you don't beat yourself up, that's the achievement to me. Like, that's for me, the beloved is like, I want to be on my side. I want to be on my side in everything, and giving myself that patience and that nurturing. And again, because I want to use the gifts I have, because I think I am one infinite channel of these possibilities that can affect people, who can affect people, who can affect people. So I think we're all the beloved. And it's waiting for us to choose it. It's waiting for us to proclaim it. And initially, it may feel fake. Like I mentioned that best tool thing earlier, about a tool that I use. When I first started doing that, it felt fake to me. It felt like, oh, you are so pathetic now that you're going to have to write to loving voices in your head. Oh my God, but I decided I'm a very practical girl when it comes down to it. I have that logic in me. And I thought, when I don't believe this, I curl up on the couch and I'm freaked out and nothing is working, right? When I allow myself to believe this, even if it's not true, right? Even if it wasn't true, I'm a better person because of it. I get out there and do things I wouldn't have done because of it. So I know, but by their fruits you shall know them. And I also just know I don't even care. If I come to the other side and realize, wow, that was just not even true at all, I don't care. I had a better life because of it. So I'm going to choose in my lifetime to be the beloved and to allow good things to come. Because I also believe in frequency, that the more loving I am to myself and the more I show up and the more I can be there, I think it changes the frequency. I think that there's a different energy. You attract better people. You're in the zone. You're more creative. You're more alive. You're laughing more. And for me, that's part of what I want in this life. And I want other people to have that. I want to read other people's books. I want to see how they love their parents. I want to see what house they built or what book they read. I mean, just like, I think we all have so much love and potential in us, and it's just choosing it.
Tama Kieves, author of the beautiful book, Learning to Trust Yourself. Tam to Tam, you've lifted all of us up. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tam to Tam.
Tam to Tam. Thanks, friends. And if you'd like to watch Insights at the Edge on video and participate in the after-show Q&A session with our guests, come join us on Sounds True 1, a new membership community featuring award-winning original shows, live classes, community learning, guided meditations, and more with the leading wisdom teachers of our time. Use promo code PODCAST to get your first month free. You can learn more at join.soundstrue.com. Sounds True, waking up the world. The Sounds True Podcast Network.